Yes, please.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the Concord Select Board meeting of July 12th, 2021. This meeting is being recorded and will be available on the Minuteman Media Network. The Concord Select Board will be meeting live and over Zoom for the next few months in accordance with Massachusetts open meeting law. We may from time to time have Select Board members join the meeting virtually, and we encourage members of the public to continue to access the Select Board meetings via Zoom or in person. Both locations will be posted on the meeting agenda. Okay, first item is executive session. So I'm looking for a motion to enter executive session, and we will be returning to open session approximately 6:30 p.m., give or take, to discuss strategy with respect to ongoing litigation regarding Sims Development and Permitting LLC versus the Town of Concord et al., as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the town, and the chair so declares.
Move to enter executive session to return to open session to discuss strategy with respect to ongoing litigation regarding Sims Development and Permitting LLC versus the Town of Concord et al., as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the town as declared by the chair.
Second. Okay.
All in favor?
Well, but for executive session, we need a roll call vote.
In executive session. But,
No,
okay.
we need to go into it.
So,
I know, we're not worried about Zoom.
Ms. Ackerman?
Aye.
Ms. Bates?
Aye.
Mr. Dane?
Aye.
Ms. Escobedo?
Aye.
And myself, Mr. Johnson, aye.
Okay, we are now in executive session.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back to the Select Board meeting of July 12th, 2021. This meeting is recorded and will be available on the Minuteman Media Network. At this time, if you have a cell phone, would you please put it on an airplane mode or do not disturb mode? Thank you for all the people who are attending live and attending by Zoom tonight. Okay, the first order of business now is the consent agenda.
So move to approve the consent agenda, which is the town accountant's warrants of July 1st, 2021, CPS expense warrant, and the July 8th, 2021 AP warrants. Also the minutes of June 1st, executive session minutes not to be released of June 1st, and then June 13th, 2021, and June 21st, 2021.
Could I note that although this is a
You're muted.
session.
Okay. So shall I separate the
We're
motion?
going to wait a minute until they figure out.
You got it.
Do we need to start over again? From
No,
the
my
beginning?
volume was on from the executive session.
All right,
so now-
everything's all set?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
All right.
should I, as before, split the consent agenda?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay. So move to approve the town accountant warrants of July 1st, 2021, and CPS expense warrant, the July 8th, 2021 AP warrants, and the June 21st, 2021 minutes.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Did that include the executive session?
No,
no,
now
no.
I'll move to approve the minutes of June 21st, 2021 executive session not to be released, and June 13th, 2021.
Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're present.
You're voting present. Okay, very
I
good.
missed the book.
Okay, that takes care of the consent calendar, which is supposed to be the easiest thing on the agenda. Next, we have the town manager's report. The town manager's on vacation, and we have the acting town manager Carrie LaFleur. The report is in the packet, so I don't think we need to read through it for the record. It's in the packet. Does anyone have any questions? Susan?
Yeah, I wondered if we could get an update on the broadband situation.
Well, we just had an update on July 7th from the CMLP, and at the meeting of July 26th, there will be another broadband debriefing from the CMLP people. It's going to be an item on our agenda where they will give the full report.
Okay.
I think we'll also have some additional comments on the liaison reports at the end of the meeting.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right,
Yeah, there was a CMLP session.
right. That's what I'm talking about, the July 7th. Okay, are there any other questions on the town manager's report? Susan?
I have
Another
one more question. There's a statement in here about Magog, that the water operations crews have prepared pumping and treatment systems for seasonal operation of the supply to meet peak demand. I believe the town manager had said a couple meetings ago that they were going, before they released the water, there would be PFAS testing of that body of water, and I wondered if that was in the plans or what status of that was.
So I do not have an answer to that, but Stephen will be back tomorrow, and I'd be happy to relay that to him and have him get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, also in that report, I want, on behalf of the board, I want to commend all the departments for moving to online permitting, and commend the fire department for their rapid response to the Thoreau and the other fire, and the conservation crew that worked so hard on pulling invasives. There's a lot of positive news in this report, so thanks all around. Okay, next item. I have several chairs' remarks tonight. First of all, I'm sorry to announce that former Select Board member John Marabello has passed away on July 1st. John was born and raised in Concord, and he served 2 terms on the Select Board. He was also a special police officer and Grand Marshal. He and his wife, Marion, owned the Marabello Tree and Landscape Company. The funeral will be on Wednesday, July 14th at 10:30 a.m. at Holy Family Parish, and the custom is for current and former Select Board members to gather a few minutes before the funeral in front of the church and attend as a group. My next item is that we understand that some citizens have recently been unable to access our public meetings in Concord via Zoom link. My understanding is that the town uses antiviral software called Mimecast. This software screens all the links to web pages known as hyperlinks. So if you're a member of the public and you click on the Zoom link in our agenda, you might get a Mimecast error, or you might be asked to register with Mimecast. Our IT department is working to exempt all these Zoom public meeting links from the Mimecast antiviral software. But in the meantime, if you're having this problem, you can go to the Zoom website and input the meeting ID number and passcode, and you can still access our public meetings. Thanks for your patience on this issue. Okay, my next item is about liaisons. So in the packet, we have what we're hoping is going to be the final liaison list. I guess we go through this every year. There's a few changes. If I don't hear any problems now, I'm going to assume it's the final list, and we'll post it. Anybody have any issue? Linda?
Everyone's going to smile when I make this comment, but I would just suggest that maybe you reformat it slightly in terms of how it appears on the page for the public
Yes.
before it's posted.
Because it looks like you have about 15 committees.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Do you see that, Jeremy?
Oh, I see, yeah.
yeah,
It's just a formatting thing that I think Jeremy can,
can work out.
yeah. Okay,
Figure it out.
thank you, Linda. Okay, now also about liaisons, I have 3 announcements. Many of us are still getting notified as if we're still the liaison from last year. So if you get one of those notices for a meeting from last year, would you please forward, the correct liaison's name and email? And if you haven't heard yet from your new reports, let them know that you're, obviously the liaison. Another announcement is please forward the name and email of the new chair. If there's a new chair in your liaison committee, please forward the name and email of that person to Jeremy, so he'll have it for the chair's meeting distribution. And finally, please inform the chair of your liaison group if you ever see anything in our select board packet that they may need to know about, right? They may not be reading our select board packet, and then they may be caught by surprise. So it's our job to notify them what's going on from our packet. Okay, we have a few more announcements. On the goal setting, thank you everybody for great comments and feedback, input on putting it all together into one draft document. We will be holding our first focused meeting next week, July 19th. We will be doing the annual goal setting. And I'm going to thank Matt in advance, who has volunteered to share his screen so that we can do kind of like a virtual whiteboard and edit it right on the spot.
And note that additional goal that Linda had proposed tonight for FY22.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and my final chair's remark has to do with DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. So, as you know, the town manager has hired a consultant, and in a few weeks, we'll be getting an update of all of the DEI work that's been done so far. And we might be at that point inviting the groups like the League of Women Voters, CORE, and both church groups that have sent us correspondence, and we'll have a discussion about DEI. So that will be coming up.
I have a
Susan,
question.
and then Henry.
Is there a report that we will get about the DEI, from the, the report that the consultant wrote about the process that
My
he went
understanding,
through with the senior staff?
right. My understanding is there's a report that's out, and we're going to get a summary of it at some point.
Well, Terry, I would
Henry.
like to, I understand there has been a report that has been provided to the town manager, I believe. And I think that because it is something that is so vital for our concern, is that I think it's important that the board see that report in its original and unedited form, so that we have the opportunity to review everything that is good and everything that is bad without anything being sugar-coated, so that we can decide, have a better idea of how we need to proceed with this. And so I don't know if that needs a formal motion, but I think we would we should forward a request for that unfiltered information be provided to the select board.
Okay. Okay, good idea. Linda or Matt, do you agree? Do you have any comments on this? Or-
I wish I knew more about what there was out
Well,
there.
that's-
I mean, I
that's-
guess that,
yeah.
I would just request to the town manager that we get the information, if there's a report, that we get a copy. It seems like a natural thing for the select board to do. So I guess we could just pass that request through.
Yeah, and I think it's also gives us some guidance on what to do, what the next steps are. I read the correspondence from the league and noticed that they mentioned that they've done a number of things, but that they said they're not a very diverse group. And that's one of the things I'm struggling with Concord, is we are not, but that doesn't mean there are no other groups except, well, white people. But they should be included, and I don't really know how to go about doing that.
Right, right, that's what we need to figure out. Okay, so we will, I see Carrie taking notes, we will relay that request to the town manager. Thank you. Okay, so our next item is discussion of the annual town meeting date. And we have with us our town moderator, Carmen Reese, and we might, well, Kerry LaFleur is here.
We have the
And
superintendent.
we have the superintendent, Lori Hunter. Okay, welcome, everybody, and,
Could I just add in one thing? We do have a public hearing scheduled for 7 p.m. and it is 7:02 right now.
right, that's okay,
So-
we just cannot be earlier than 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Thank
Just wanted to
you.
throw it out there.
Thank you,
Yep.
Jeremy. I'm going by that clock. I have to remember to get that clock
Right.
fixed by next time. Okay, so I don't think these next few items will take very long, and then we will be on to the public hearing. So, welcome Carmen, Lori, and Carrie. So, I think we have 2 dates that have been proposed now. May 1st and May 8th, they are both Sunday afternoons. I assume they would have the rain date of the day after, the Monday. We also have,
Are we still talking about outdoor?
Carmen, do you want to answer that question?
The venue is, hi, Carmen Reese, town moderator. The venue is actually up to the select board, although we've always worked collaboratively on this. I would say that the results of our exit survey at town meeting, being a preference of people to have a one-day, more streamlined format, but to move indoors, means that we should move indoors. And I'd also note that a lot of people really enjoyed being outdoors. Some people really didn't enjoy being outdoors, and I know that the fire chief was a little bit concerned about the potential effect of dehydration on particularly some of our older or more infirm citizens who were there in attendance baking. It's a lot more work for the staff to plan the meeting for outside. We've been lucky the last 2 years and not had to use the rain date. If we're indoors, we won't have to use the rain date.
The people who came to an outdoor meeting preferred an outdoor meeting.
Some didn't.
Yeah, and some of those did.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
not all of them, but it would be, I think, tilted in that direction.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have here 2 Sunday afternoons being proposed. We heard from Carmen last time that a lot of people like Sunday afternoon. It seems to be going well. So we have 2 post calendars that Chris Carmody has put together. Right before this meeting started, there's one more holiday, or sort of a holiday, that we need to add on here that Carrie was kind enough to realize and let me know that Sunday, May 8th happens to be Mother's Day. So that could really affect certain people, whether they want to come on May 8th. So I guess either of these dates is going to work for the staff in terms of all the deadlines we have with the FinCom book and the warrant publication, et cetera, et cetera. What's the board's pleasure on this?
So have these dates been cleared with the schools in terms of the availability, assuming we're talking about the high school?
They have. We can make either of them work.
This draft calendar, is it available anywhere?
Yes, it was sent to you today, sent to all of us.
Okay. It's not in our packet.
No, it didn't make it into the packet. It just came in an email today. And what's going to happen, Matt, I'm glad you asked that question. Once we pick one of these dates, we're going to have an entire calendar for the year with these
Right.
dates and all
Sure.
the other
I
dates.
just-
This is just to give us a general idea.
Yeah.
It's an email from Chris, but
Okay.
you can look on with me.
No, that's all right. It's okay. I'll dig it up.
Terry, if you'd like, I could share the
Yeah,
calendar.
we
be
can
great.
share this
Yeah, yeah,
with you.
yeah.
That's fine. That's a good idea, I guess.
And I assume the town moderator is available on either one of those dates.
From Chris? This was emails from Chris?
Yes.
Susan, you can also look right up
Anybody
there. I
have
have it.
binoculars?
Here it is, right up here, yeah.
Here we go.
Carmen, someone
no,
just
this
asked if
is-
you are
that's not
available on
it.
both these
Yeah,
dates,
I was assuming
May 1st and May 8th.
that would be key.
Thank you for asking. Yes, I can be available either date.
Oh, I apologize.
Today.
Right there.
I did not either.
What's
It's a
that?
comedy of errors.
Okay.
This
well-
this is for last week's meeting.
Okay, well, let's just take a look at the screen if we can, or
Okay.
look in my computer. Basically, both dates are fine in terms of school vacations and holidays.
Okay.
I apologize, if, it just came today, and we're going to, in one of the next few meetings, have an entire calendar that we will approve. So it seems to me that the only real disadvantage of May 8th would be the Mother's Day.
I think that's significant.
That's a significant
I would say that's
problem
significant,
for a
yeah.
Sunday afternoon. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So May Day. We'll
All
go
right.
for May Day.
Does anybody have a problem with this May 1st?
In some countries, it would be a big problem, but
Right.
here we
How
can do
about
it.
Cinco de Mayo, right? Let's do that.
Well, no, I mean, it's Labor Day in many countries.
Okay. All right. Do we have a motion then for May 1st?
Move to set the date of 2022 annual town meeting to May 1st, 2022 and do we need a time certain?
Yes. Carmen, are you proposing 1 o'clock again?
That seems to have worked well the last.
Okay, at 1 p.m.
Okay. Is there a second?
Seconds.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you. So related to that, Carmen?
May I just ask a question? You've set the date. Have you? But you haven't voted on this calendar yet. Is that right? Okay.
We're going to have a much bigger calendar with everything on it.
Okay.
A last minute draft to just get an idea.
Okay, no worries. I'm just going to note that the shortening of the period which the warrant is opened, which it has been proposed, would be a pretty substantial deviation from our past practice, which might be fine, but I do think that it probably bears some discussion and some notice to the public that you're thinking about that. I think the primary impact would be on citizen petitioners. Anybody who's part of the town or on a board and committee will understand it would be citizen petitioners who would miss that additional 2 weeks that they have been accustomed to having. So.
That's an excellent point. Thank you. And what we could do is, it looks like on this calendar, we can keep May 1st and just move back, if we wanted to, we can move back this January 22nd, make it earlier.
Yeah.
And that would solve it. So we will figure that out. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item related to this is the autumn calendar for select board meetings. And I think that is in the packet. Jeremy, you can share the screen if you'd like.
Sure.
Trying to get the right page here. What page is that, do you know?
Page 17.
Thank you, page 17. great. So, this draft is just, going along what we talked about for summer and continuing that, we have it on the screen too. So each month, we will have 2 regular select board meetings, 1 focused meeting, and 1 week with a break. And if there are 5 Mondays in the month, we will have 2 weeks with a break if we're lucky. Of course, if an emergency comes up, that's a different story. So this is the proposed calendar, trying to work around the holidays. And tied in with that, I have written down some of the focused meetings, like July 19th, goal-setting session. And I have talked with Dr. Hunter and Chairman Cynthia Rainey about September 20th, possibly being a brainstorming session on alternative revenue for the middle school. And for capital planning, Cynthia and I came up with September 27th for the first forum for capital planning. The second forum is in November that the Finance Committee holds, and the final one, December 6th. So September 27th and December 6th would be joint meetings of the, they'd be regular select board meetings, and one portion would be a joint meeting with the school committee for capital planning. So do any members have any questions about the autumn calendar or the dates of the capital planning forums?
So I would just note for this purpose, as well as the annual town meeting full calendar that'll be put in place, that October 11th probably should also be designated as Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Thank you.
Yep.
Correct.
And then I just had a question about September 7th. I assume that we're having a meeting on that Tuesday in order to not go more than 2 weeks without a meeting, and is that because of AP warrants or other issues? I mean, I just wonder, since it's Labor Day week, that maybe we could meet on the September 13th instead, and basically have a real recess there at the end of August, beginning of September. But I don't know if there's a technical reason why maybe we couldn't go that long.
If the board wants to do that, we can, but if anything comes up, that's a pretty long gap.
Yeah.
We may have to call an emergency.
Yeah, and it's not because I have any special
No,
plans or
right.
anything, it's just, it just seems, it's off.
Yeah, and
Cycle and-
I had thought that August 30th might be when people would be away.
That is actually the case.
Yeah, so it's a tough call.
At least this people.
Okay, it's a tough call. Carrie, we're okay though, if we wanted to have a 3-week gap, because in terms of approving the warrant? Is it
Sure, there's no issue with that because we receive approval from the chair on a tentative basis. So absolutely no reason you can't take a break.
It all depends on if anybody else has any issues. I mean, and again, I don't have any strong concerns, it's just,
And
okay.
if you're away, you can attend by Zoom.
Yeah. Great way to spend your vacation. All right, I'm fine with this calendar. It's all right.
Other questions?
So are you
Linda?
thinking of changing, or?
Well, Matt says he's fine. If anyone wants to change, we can change it. I'm open to suggestion.
You can go either way.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
All right, we'll leave it as is for now. Obviously, it's subject to change. Things are gonna come up, and things may have to be changed. But these will be our dates for now.
Okay.
And also, we're waiting to hear from the school committee. Hi, Cynthia. Cynthia, do you want to add anything?
No, we will meet as a committee later this month, and we will definitely discuss this topic.
Okay, so those are our proposed dates for now.
We will get back to you, and I think they'll work, but I'll refer to the full committee to discuss that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, we now move on to the public hearing. Thank you very much, Cynthia, Lori, Carmen, Carrie, and anybody else who was here for that item. Okay, we will have a motion to open the public hearing.
So move to open the public hearing of the application by Paparazzi Trattoria of Concord, located at 768 Elm Street, for a new alternate manager of record.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor for opening the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All right. Do we have a representative for from Paparazzi? Would you like to come up to the microphone?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amanda Ramos.
I'm Julian Maria. I'm the general manager of Paparazzi, and Amanda is one of the managers that we are asking to be added to as a manager, alternate manager on record. Thank you.
Thanks for taking time out from the dinner hour.
Oh, we're on our way home.
Oh, okay.
We work the morning shift.
Oh, okay.
Great. All right, are there questions from any board members?
The only question I had was there's a page of procedures of how you treat different situations with customers, and what your rules and regulations are for serving. I guess the parent company is a Rhode Island company, and a lot of it seems to be just picked up verbatim from their Rhode Island procedures rather than addressing the particular requirements of Massachusetts. So they might want to, I don't think that's a problem, because it seems substantially the same idea, but they might want to update their policies and procedures for dealing with the serving issues in light of the Massachusetts regulations and standards.
Would you like to address that?
I can certainly speak to our person at our corporate office that handles that matter. I don't have any knowledge of it firsthand, how it differs from Massachusetts, so I cannot really give any, I cannot shed any light on it right now.
Was Paparazzi previously part of Boston Restaurant Group?
Back Bay Restaurant Group.
Back Bay Restaurant.
Right, right,
So
owned by
it-
Charlie
it-
Sarkis.
It at one time was part of the Massachusetts corporation, then were they acquired?
We were acquired in 2013 by Newport Restaurant Group.
Yeah, so I would be surprised if the procedures hadn't been just sort of, carried forward from there.
It is. We tried not to change anything because our guests and the communities that we do businesses in expect a certain method of how we treat our guests and how we take care of our guests. So.
As far as all the requirements for licensing and training, tips and all of, isn't that called tips?
Well, there's several different associations that can do that. We deal with ServSafe and eTips.
Okay, ServSafe.
So, and all our servers, all our bartenders are required to have those certifications. They won't be able to serve or bartend if they don't have.
And Amanda, you have those as well?
I have both, correct.
Great.
She's a great bartender as well.
Proper paperwork.
Yes, everything has been completed.
Right, and we have no problems, no issues from the police department. Any other questions, comments?
No.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the public?
Okay.
All right, Jeremy, do we have any on Zoom? Any?
Nope, nobody raising their hand.
All right, motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, any further discussion from the board?
Nope.
All right, we'll have a motion then.
Yep, move to grant the application by Paparazzi Trattoria of Concord, located at 768 Elm Street, to assign Amanda Ramos as the new alternate manager of record.
All right, is there a second? Second, okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you.
Thank you.
for your
I'd
patience.
also like to thank Jeremy. I've never met you in public. I mean, in
Nice to meet you.
person.
Yeah.
The line of communication it's really, really impressive. I've worked in Boston for a long time. I was a Paparazzi general manager on Newbury Street, and I'd never had access to the town hall and city hall or anything like I do. So I appreciate that.
Welcome to
Thank you
Concord.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you
Nice
very
meeting you.
much.
Thanks.
Best of luck, Amanda.
Have a good night, everybody.
You too. Okay, moving right along to our PEG Access Charge. We have Carlin Reed, the chair of the PEG Access Committee. Welcome, Carlin.
Thank you. Carlin Reed, Chair of the PEG Access Advisory Committee, here to answer questions about the 3 proposed changes to the PEG Access Charge. Very briefly, they are first, to reduce the overall size of the committee from 7 to 5, and second, to reduce the number of citizens at large from 5 to 3. The reason is because we've been having a problem for the entire past year getting the full membership. We've barely been able to make quorum, and we've got some very important matters to deal with coming up. It's dealing with the franchise renewal, as well as making sure that the studio is properly staffed. So we'd like to be able to meet in order to meet our obligations as well. The third charge is something that happened after our committee meeting met. On June 6th, the Carlisle Board of Selectmen became the Carlisle Select Board. They changed their name, so that's the third charge, the third change. And all 3 changes are on page 1 of the charge, but those are the only changes proposed. Thank you.
Questions? Anybody have any questions? I know originally there was some talk about some other more comprehensive changes, but at this time, the PEG Access Committee has voted these changes and they want the Select Board to approve.
So I'll just comment that, and thank you very much for making the changes so evident and pointing them out, and not that we couldn't have seen them, but I just want to comment on the membership number and moving from 7 to 5, which I think is appropriate in this case. But I do want to make a point that to have committees with less than 5, I think is not always the best way to go in terms of having diverse opinions on on any one committee, not specifically yours here today. And so I just want to go on record for underscoring that.
I mean, that fewer than 7,
Fewer than 5, I think.
but this will be 5, right?
This will be 5.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
making my comment in general for
I got it.
Okay,
other
okay.
committees, because we've run into some issues with this in town this year, and I think it's important to make a comment.
Okay, so noted. All right.
I don't know how you improve your prospects of getting a quorum by decreasing the number unless you know which people are going to show up.
Well, I think the problem is if you have 7,
You need
have to
4.
You need 4.
Yeah,
And
but-
if you have 5, you only need 3.
But if you have, but there are 3 that don't come, okay? And if you reduce it to 5 and the same 3 don't come, you still don't have a quorum.
You need a higher percentage of attendance with a 5-member committee than you do with a 7-member committee to meet quorum.
So I don't think that's, if that's the object, is to just be able to make a quorum, I think then your issue is who you put on the committee.
Well,
And not changing the size of the committee.
right. I think the idea is there may be 5 burning souls, but maybe not 7 burning souls
Yeah.
in Concord for
Yeah.
PEG access.
I think that they're faced with an issue that many of the committees are. They have vacancies.
Yeah.
And in order to function, you need to have a quorum, and it seems like 5 is a reasonable number for.
Well,
business
get out
to
on
be
a
accomplished.
street corner and stick green
We'll
cards
put
in
you
people's
charge of
pockets.
that.
Yeah.
You can be in charge.
Well, no, but also we do have a very big challenge ahead of us in terms of new committee formation.
Right.
And seating all of those committees. It's
So while
really
Henry
daunting.
was out recruiting for one committee.
But I want to be careful about that, because I agree that we probably have more committees than we need, and there's a lot of confusion, and it creates a lot of work in one way. But I can also tell you that it's also a way to get people involved in town government.
Yes.
Definitely.
And when something comes up and somebody says, oh, you're putting together a committee, like, for instance, with the George Dugan thing, I've a number of people who really want to work on that, and I say, well, we're thinking about putting together an ad hoc committee for that, and this would get probably half a dozen new people involved in town government that weren't involved before.
Right.
And so it might be worth the trouble to have each one of us have 15 committees as our liaison job.
Okay, well, I'm going to remind the board that we have a planned focus meeting. We don't have a date yet, but this is an issue. We have a lot of work to do about committees, including APP 10, including how are we going to streamline committees. So we will be tackling that in the next few months, and it's a very difficult issue. I don't know what the solution is.
So you don't think we should make Carlin the victim of that pursuit?
Not right now. Okay.
So,
All right,
are we ready for a motion? You
I think
wanna-
we are. No further discussion, then we're ready for a motion.
Okay, move to amend the charge, sorry, I'm the wrong. Move to approve the amendments to the PEG Access Advisory Committee charge as described in the meeting materials dated July 12th, 2021.
Okay.
And I'll just remind, I guess, Jeremy, that we keep the approval date on as well as the revised date for these documents, which I know he's aware of.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Let me
Anybody?
just make one.
Wait a minute, anybody opposed? No.
No.
Let me
Okay.
just make one further note, and that is, as amazing as it may seem, there is no easy or even perhaps possible way for us to find out what the charges are for all these 70 committees. They are not all in one place,
I know.
anywhere. I don't know if anybody even knows where to find them.
I just asked the town clerk for 2 of them today.
Well, wouldn't you think, especially if you were talking about dealing with the committees and deciding how many we want to have and what we want them to do, we ought to have all of the committee charges together in one book that we can look at?
Let me ask Jeremy, is this something that you and Chris, the town manager's office, I know Stephen's not here, so I know you can't speak for him, but is this something that would take a lot of work to put together, or?
Sure. So what I was actually writing down as you guys were talking is trying to get all of the charges on the committee websites, because I think that would be the best place to put them, is to have them all listed on the committee website, and then we also could probably develop a page somewhere on the town website with solely dedicated to all the committee charges.
Okay.
So it's something that we can look into. As
Thank you very much. Great. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Carlin.
Thank you very much, Carlin.
Thank you very much, and our charge is on our PAC webpage already, so.
By the way, to be fair, the charges I was looking for passed.
Thank you.
That little detail.
Carlin, before you leave, do you have full membership right now for your committee?
No, we don't. Even with this reduced number of 5, we have 1 vacancy. So, Henry, I'd really love some help finding a person for that 5th vacancy that we have. So we have 1 seat to fill. Thank you.
The agenda today.
Okay, we are going to move on to discuss a possible exemption of the 2025 committee and its subcommittees from APP 10. Now, this is not going to be a discussion about changing all of APP 10. That will come up in the focus meeting. We've had lots of comments about APP 10. It needs some work, we know it. We're not doing that tonight. But we do have to decide looking ahead to this 2025 Executive Committee and its subcommittees. They will be around until 2025 or 2026. They're not permanent committees. And it seems to me that we would want to exempt APP 10 from, there's a requirement that if you're on a town committee in Concord, you cannot be on another town committee in Concord. There's exceptions. There's lots of exceptions, and I think we want to, in my opinion, I want to hear what you guys think, but I think we want an exception for the 2025.
So the original charge that was written in February for this committee and was approved by the select board did in fact include this as an exception.
Yes, and yet,
But just one.
and yet there was a technical error.
Right.
So the technical error is that at the last sentence of the existing charge says, given the number of citizens that may be asked to participate in committee-related activities for their particular interest, expertise, and community connection, App 10, Section 7D, committee transfers will not apply. But if you look at App 10, you find that Section D is dual committee appointments, and Section E is committee transfers. So actually, what I believe was intended was that it say
Actually, I think it's C. That's,
that App 10, Section 7D, dual committee appointments, and E, committee transfers will not apply. So that's the motion that I've prepared, that we amend it to add the words dual committee appointments and E in order to align with App 10.
all right,
So-
so just so we
So it's
understand,
the wording, yeah.
so C is the one that's dual committee.
No, C is appointments for additional terms.
D is.
No.
Okay, which version are we looking at? So I'm looking at,
I'm looking at 7D.
no, I think that there may be multiple revisions of App 10, so I've got the version revised 6/18/12.
Oh, I've got 4/9/20.
Oh, so you have a more recent. Okay, so maybe the number of
I'm
paragraphs
looking
has
at the one in
changed.
the packet.
By the way, I pulled this up off the town
All
website,
right, so
so.
the website needs to be updated.
But we also want to be able to cover make town employees eligible and
Okay.
non-residents
Okay, let's do
eligible.
one thing at a time. So first of all, let's all get on the same version. So in the packet tonight, on page 48, we have, I think, the most recent version,
Okay,
revised 4/9/20.
all right, that sounds very recent.
And that, we're talking about section C, dual appointments.
But I think Henry's correct that we probably are wanting to exempt more than just that.
Correct. Well, let's just, yes, we want to exempt,
C and D at least, right? C, dual committee appointments, and D, committee transfers.
what is a committee
So the original
transfer?
charge still had a problem. Well, that you could only be considered to an appointment at one after the completion of the other. It's actually kind of a subset of the dual.
Okay, it is the same,
Yeah.
yeah.
And do you-
This is really highlighting the
you need
need
to-
for us to fix that APP 10, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah. And then,
I got them here, it's just like, yeah. you have it here.
All right, and then in E, we're talking about, we also might want to have town
Exempt E.
employees and non-residents.
G,
Also, it excludes the town manager.
right, and G. So basically, we want to exempt, yeah, sections C, D, E, and G.
Okay. Good.
And I think we have am I correct that the APPs are adopted by the board?
Yes.
And so I assume we have the authority to waive the provisions of the
Yeah.
existing policies?
Have done it before, I believe.
We have made exceptions for other committees in the past, right?
Intentionally. You
Yeah.
know, with
Yeah.
a, yeah,
Yeah, we've had discussion and vote,
correct.
right. I mean, there's usually a good reason, and we have a good reason this time also, so.
So what were the sections, C, D, E, and
G.
G? Okay.
G is the residency.
Okay.
Okay,
What was it? Yeah.
So you're gonna use the wording waive then?
he's typing a motion right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
It says will not apply, at least I'm using the wording from the existing charge.
Sure.
Okay, so the App 10, Section 7, C, D, E, and G will not apply to this committee or its subcommittees, okay?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, all right. Do you want to read the whole motion then?
Sure. Move to amend the charge of the Concord 2025 Executive Committee by adding the words D, E, and G, and striking the word committee transfers from the last sentence of other considerations. So it reads, given the number of citizens that may be asked to participate in committee-related activities for their particular interest, expertise, and community connection, App 10, Section 7, C, D, E, and G will not apply to this committee or its subcommittees.
Any discussion?
Well, any seconds for that?
Right, all right, we need second. Second, okay, any discussion?
I think it's a great idea, Matt.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Gee, if you guys agree, we're in trouble, huh?
We've been grinning all night.
Yeah. I have to split you two up then.
Well, sometimes people agree by accident.
I think it's because you're sitting next to each other, passing notes on the table.
All right.
Okay, we will move on to the next item. We are going to consider the size and membership of the 2025 Executive Committee. And before we start that, I think that all of us have the same goal, which is we want to start recruiting people and appointing people to this committee as soon as possible. So
Absolutely.
these are the issues, size and membership, that we need to resolve right away. I also want to ask Kerry to speak really briefly on the financing ideas that you had, Henry, about, I think in your draft, number 2, you had talked about the possibility of special legislation and revolving funds and town meeting. Kerry has some ideas on this.
Okay, I guess I was thinking maybe questions would be asked and I would be responding to them. I think just up front, I would say that some of those things might not be necessary, that we might have the ability and authorization to do those things already. I'm not sure that special legislation is needed, and I would need to understand more the reasoning behind that.
The only reason I raised it actually was because it was in the charge, I think, for the 1975 committee, and one of the financial reports from one of the years had reference to a special act of 1964. I think it was 939, and it's not in any of my materials, but I put in a request to the social law library to get me a copy of that special act so we could see what they thought they needed to do. But I think the purpose of it was that the expense that hits in the year of 2025 will be substantial, and there was an attempt to accumulate a fund over a period of years in order to reduce the impact of that event in 1 year. I think that's what the object was, and if we have the financial wherewithal to not need to do that, then but I think I'd like to look at what they did, and how much was spent each year. I have the town reports for most of the years, and it seemed like the expenditures in the year leading up to the event were nominal, like under $100,000. So I think it would be good for us to get some idea of what the costs are if we try to reproduce a similar event, and trying to extrapolate that into current dollars and current
Right.
circumstances, and then to figure out how we would raise the money and where it would come from.
Right, so I think Kerry has done some of this and knows some of the more recent laws that we can use.
Yeah, I think I'd be happy to look at that or have a conversation with you offline about that, just to make sure that we're not pursuing special legislation that we don't in fact need, because it could take us until 2025 to get the special legislation, right?
Then we wouldn't need it.
Right.
Yeah, but
So
Yeah.
but
we'll
I think
continue
it's
to,
something we would have a lot,
Yeah, and
a lot of cooperation on getting.
And I realized, based upon the materials that you circulated, with the budget of the event in 1775 being $130K in $75, that would be about $630,000 now.
Right,
So that's the kind of order of magnitude that we're talking about.
Right.
It's not it's not pennies, that's for sure.
But it's
Right.
less than the Estabrook litigation.
but we do have some changes in law that you should feel free to talk with Kerry about, because we can have the ability to carry forward the money from one year to the next in a special article, and gift accounts, and you guys can review
we'll
all of
figure
those
it out.
details.
We'll
Great,
figure it out.
great.
And just, by the way, just because we mentioned something in the charge doesn't necessarily mean we have to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make it something as though it was more like a roadmap than just a bare bones kind of authorization kind of thing. And part of it, the reason I fleshed it out a little bit was we're going to have a committee, and they're going to want, I think, some idea of what they're supposed to do and what their options are. And I thought to be more inclusive, I think Matt called it prescriptive, but more inclusive would be helpful.
Okay. All right, so, Linda?
Well, it's a brief couple sentences, maybe for number 2, and it may be easier for Carrie just to mark it up and make some changes. I don't know if that would be easier.
sure, I mean, I can take a look at it. I apologize, I just looked at this on Friday for the first time, and, but I'm happy to work with you on this.
Maybe you and I can just meet
Yeah,
sometime,
sure.
next
I'm not-
week or so.
Sorry to add it, I'm not trying to add a task, I just was wondering if that might be an easier way to go.
After
Yeah.
you guys meet, we'll
Yeah.
see. I don't think it will take much work at all to, okay. So let's return to, the agenda, which says we're going to continue the size and we're going to continue discussion of the size and membership of this 2025 Executive Committee. We have Henry's thoughts, we have some thoughts from Matt.
Matt went and agreed with me again. I think something is wrong. He said he thought I might be right, at least initially, to have a smaller group for the executive committee. And I would agree with him.
So, yeah, what I proposed was that we keep the rest of the membership section intact, but for the initial year, suggest that we have a committee of either 7 or perhaps 9 members that would be selected from among the groups that are identified, with the idea that after that year, the remaining members would be selected according to the same principles. And so they would give some latitude to, choose the right skills for the initial year's formation, and to form a quorum with fewer members and get this thing off the ground. So I was, seeing the complexity of seating a 12-member committee when we have 3 other committees that are
Right.
likely to be needed to be formed, even with the App 10
Right,
exclusions that we just described.
okay.
So that's what I would propose, and
All right.
I have a draft motion if.
All right, and Susan and Linda, what are your thoughts?
Looking over Matt's motion, I agree with what he said, and it reflects the smaller committee initially and then growing it.
Mhm. Okay. Linda?
So, Henry, I just have a question in terms of, I see how you sort of created two tiers here in the sense of having the initial group, whatever number that will be, and then building on it for a larger committee later. And I guess, if the appointments for that initial smaller group, would be, in terms of the talent and the characteristics that you've described here, would be met, do you think, in the larger list?
No, I would think in the larger list, we're talking about subcommittees with specialized functions, such as coordination with educational activities, finance and fundraising, historical presentations or something like. All of those subcommittees would be more specialized, the way I see it, with people who are best suited to deal with those specific issues.
Sure.
So that you might not, if you were having a committee to sponsor athletic events, as they had in 1975, you wouldn't need to have somebody from the Concord Museum on it. So I think you want to have diversity because you want to have wide representation, but you also want to use the diversity to match certain activities that we're trying to sponsor.
So I had a different take on that. So my take was that rather than have those functions relegated to subcommittees, that the executive committee itself would have representation from each of those areas, in that this is a multidisciplinary activity. It's not strictly one type of event, and that indeed, even in the first year, you might want to have somebody who has, of course, a variety of skills, but also deep knowledge of history, because I think this is a historical event, if nothing else. So that's what I was going to propose, is that we leave intact the different groups that were to be represented. And I think that, keeping in mind the characteristics that Henry suggested there, but that's really, I think, for our appointments to something called an executive committee, we should always be seeking those kinds of skills, but it doesn't have to be in the charge. The charge is really about what kind of ultimate representation do we need to be sure that this is an event that covers the full scope of activities that we would hope it would. So, and which of those come on board first? That's more at the discretion of the board to who we nominate and who we put on the board, the committee. But then after a year, we would expect all of them to be there, and that the subcommittees would be formed and so forth, but that the executive or steering committee, or whatever you want to call it, would still have that general representation.
So I understand your model, and it certainly has merit, and that was where we started in terms
Right.
of trying to have the broadest representation as possible, and also identify skill areas that we thought were important to this particular function. So again, I'm just asking Henry in terms of how you're thinking about this.
Well, my thinking was, not to be really overly dependent upon what was done 50 years ago, but it was a successful event. They did the list, when I had listed potential subcommittees, they were taken essentially from 1975.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the subcommittees. I guess what I'm trying to get at is make sure that whatever you have in mind for your smaller committee, whether it be 6, 7, 8, whatever that number's gonna be, that in fact, you can seat that committee drawing from this list that Matt's referring to.
Oh, well, that, if you go down that list that is there, that list includes everybody. So if you draw people from the town, that's the list of people you're going to be drawing at. But I don't think you want, say, the Public Safety Committee to be the same kind of people that
Oh,
you're going to
yeah,
have
yeah, I
on,
certainly understand
so
that,
that,
yeah.
and really, ultimately, since all the appointments are going to be made by us, we actually have control over who goes where. So I think in that respect, we retain the flexibility, and I think we also retain the ability to make exceptions when it seems like a person is appropriate to be on a committee, but they don't come from the correct population.
Okay.
Okay. Further discussion?
My sense is let's just get it done and get
Yeah,
on with it.
exactly.
Not spend a lot of time, because,
Right.
pretty much, we're gonna do what we need to do to make it work.
Exactly.
Okay, so
So
let's
I
not
think
get
we're all
bogged
in
down.
agreement with that.
And
We're
let's not
out
get bogged down
recruiting.
in the infrastructure.
Exactly. So, just so the public knows, we are actively recruiting, we're seeking lots of people for this 2025 Executive Committee and its many subcommittees. And we already have, I think, 3 green cards for this. So,
At least, yeah.
at least, so we're starting to get people applying. This is great.
Let me ask, I have a master list that I've been putting together.
Okay.
And I put the people on it that you had contacted. It would be helpful if any of you who contacted people to determine their interest would send that information along to me, so I could keep a master list of all the people who were being solicited for membership.
Okay. Linda, do you have more questions?
Yeah, that's good, and you certainly need to be aware of all the pieces being coordinated, as long as we understand that in our recruitment and encouraging people to be on this committee, that until we've looked at the full complement and the select board's made the selection.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'd hate to have people feel as though they're on the committee
Well,
and
you
we haven't gotten to that point
I
yet.
think with a group this size, people cannot assume that because you ask them if they're interested, that they will be appointed. I mean, there's just, because we have to approach a large group of people, and so they're gonna be, we will appoint some and not others. And maybe
I'm
some.
enthusiastically looking forward to everyone who's interested in this committee, so let me be clear about that.
Yeah, and so, and people who may not get initially appointed, there will probably be some place for them down the line.
Right.
Where their help will be needed, and
Sure.
the fact that they're on the list will be really helpful in knowing who to go
Absolutely.
back
Right.
to.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay.
Right, I've talked to a few people that, maybe they won't be on the executive committee, but they have enough time and energy to be on one of the subcommittees, so that's great. Okay, so I think that Matt has drafted a motion.
Well, one just last thing, I had thrown out 7 as a number, but are people okay with that as the initial number for the first year?
I like 7, I don't want an even number. It's
Right.
always better to have
Right.
an odd number.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
7 is a lucky number.
Okay, so I move to amend the charge of the Concord 2025 Executive Committee by deleting and replacing the first 2 sentences of the membership clause with the following. The quote, "The committee shall be a 7-member committee with appointments made by the Select Board for the period of July 2021 to June 2022, expanding to 12 members in July 2022. The initial representatives will be 7 individuals selected from any of the following groups: with all identified groups to be represented in July 2022. End quote.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So the 7 members will come from that list of groups.
Right.
But
So-
are you,
And then you'd fill out the remaining
Right.
groups after the
But-
year.
is it that you have to have one, you can't have more than one from each group?
Right, so, right.
You can't have
So,
7.
because otherwise you wouldn't achieve
Well,
the
right, exactly,
representation
but I'm not
across the
sure
whole
the
thing.
motion reads that way. like-
Okay, so so the initial representatives will be 7 individuals selected.
One from each of
One
these.
from each of the following groups,
Okay, great.
okay?
Yep.
Will be 7 individuals, one from each of the following groups, with all identified groups to be represented in July 2022, okay?
Yep.
Any second for that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
All right. Okay,
Okay, it's unanimous, great.
okay.
so I have a couple other items
Sure.
for this, because I'm assuming that this is going to be used as a recruitment tool, the overall charge, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, well, we have a charge now that we've done 2 amendments for tonight, right? We had the charge we approved in.
Yeah, so will there be a new
January.
draft and an opportunity to,
Well, there may be, what I had recommended was that we seat the committee and that they take this, and if they want amendments to the charge, that it be kind of a committee decision at this point.
Right,
in
but I
that-
think Linda's saying for the amendments that we just did tonight.
Incorporate them.
Oh, incorporate them,
So,
sure.
can we ask, Jeremy, can you, put in those amendments that we did tonight and post the new, charge on the website, and we can use it as a recruiting tool?
and I just have 2 other suggestions, if I may.
Sure.
Under the executive committee officers, the second paragraph where we talk about within 60 days, you know, they'll give us a preliminary organizational chart, et cetera. I think originally we were hoping for an overview of the executive committee's preliminary survey of known federal, state, and regional planning entities for the 255th celebrations, to be included in the initial survey work that they did, as well as the information they brought to us. And the reason for that is so that is educating us as a select board committee in terms of, have we made all the connections that we need to make initially?
Well, that's a very good point. I don't think that the state is ready at all.
So, we do know activities at both the federal, state, and regional level already, a number of activities.
Right.
And it's important that both the select board and the committee know that.
Right, I guess what I mean is the way you read it here, we know there are activities happening on the state and regional level, but they're not, they don't have their act together totally
Yeah,
yet.
I'm not talking about specific events.
Okay,
I'm talking about the state commission that's in legislation right now. I'm talking
Right.
about the 250 committee that exists already, Rev 250. I'm talking about, you
Right.
know, and the list goes on.
Mass Historical Society is working on
Exactly,
it.
yeah.
you're talking about naming the other committees, not what they're all gonna
The
do,
sort of-
just naming them.
Yeah, and it both gives us
Yes.
a context, as well as it's important for the committee to have that
Absolutely,
survey
yes,
of the landscape, so to speak.
yes.
So that was one item. And then the only other thing that I noticed in that, I'm assuming that citizens with event planning and logistics expertise will include communications and public relations.
I hope so.
Because it wasn't pulled out as a separate,
Separate category.
yeah, but
Yeah.
if, as long as it's on everyone's radar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that may end up being 2 categories because we have social media,
Yeah.
but this is the kind of thing that Matt was saying, as the
That's right.
committee evolves,
Yeah,
we can
Right,
change
that's
it
not-
again.
Yeah.
Great,
The first item was far more important than
Okay.
the night.
All right.
I can send that sentence to Henry or Jeremy or both.
Oh, it sounds like Jeremy's compiling it. Okay, well,
okay,
so we'll get another draft we can look at.
Okay,
Great.
okay,
Okay.
wonderful.
thank you.
All right. I think we're all set with that item. So we're moving on to committee nominations. We don't have any tonight. Town manager appointments. with select board approval.
Okay, move to accept the town manager appointment of Peter Nickel of 500 Walden Street and Ruthie Bennett of 114 Deergrass Lane to the Climate Action Advisory Board for terms to expire on April 30th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I know that there's another application for membership that would have been on tonight, but the town manager still would like to interview the candidate, seeing as it's a town manager appointment.
Right, right. Okay, and committee liaison reports. Susan?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep that position there. I attended Economic Vitality Committee on June 29th, and they talked about a number of items. Marcia Rasmussen was there and said that Ann Burke, who's a consultant originally that was involved with business improvement districts, is going to revise her contract to take on outreach for surveys of visitors, residents, and businesses, do focus groups with property owners and restaurants, and research out, and then get survey questions. And it's a set of outside eyes looking at what is perceived to be, what are perceived to be barriers to opening businesses in Concord, be they permits or whatever. Jennifer Clark is replacing Kate Carr at the Concord Business Partnership. They're continuing, Concord Together is continuing the shopping passport program that they did in the fall. It's operational now through the summer. Orchard House is opening on August 1st for visitors. And the chamber is putting up a new website in August. West Concord Cultural District Commission on July 6th. They're a busy group of people. They're looking for 2 new members. One, they want to be embedded in the arts community, and they're looking for possibly someone from the Bradford Mills community. They're working on renewal of the charge. They have to renew it every 5 years, and this is the time when that's happening. So they reviewed went over successes of their of the first 5 years and the challenges of the next 5, which the challenges will include the Bruce Freeman Bridge over Route 2 that will connect Acton to Concord, Christopher Heights project, 13B Com Ave, and whatever redevelopment is happening at 30 to 40 the Harrell Street. But they did develop some very nice looking logo for the West Concord Cultural District. And they're talking about how to, about signage and about connection, making sure that they're connected into maintain the connections with the Mass Cultural Council. Marcia Rasmussen, the town director of town planning and land management, said the town has identified needs for support for the arts. They're looking for how they can get some financial support. And she noted that in other communities, business improvement districts are something that would normally fund them, and that's an idea that was brought up before the pandemic, but it didn't really gain traction at that time. Oh, in the big news, Porch Fest is back. September 25th, mark your calendars. So there's a lot of work going on in terms of that, which was fabulous 2 years ago, and so they have that experience to build on. And that's going to be a lot of fun, so make sure you don't miss it. I met with the Commission on Disability on July 8th. And Richard Follander was there representing the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail Advisory Committee, talking about mobility devices on the trail and for the disabled. And he said his understanding that these are allowed on all paved trails, wheelchairs, scooters, they're discussing e-bikes now, but no golf carts. Segways are okay.
No golf carts.
Whoa, they're too wide. The
Yeah,
size of them
sure
is
are.
prohibitive.
Terrible.
The elected officers, Jean Goldsberry can continue as chair and Janet Byer is clerk. And they're reviewing their charter, speaking of charters, and there is some introductory language about one, 2 members for 1 year, 2 for 2, and, the.
Oh, that's just for the
That's just
initiation of the
for
committee. Yeah.
So they're gonna take that out and make some adjustments. They also talked about FY22 goals. And they would like to present to the select board because they haven't updated their charge since 2014. And October is Disability Awareness Month. I'm not sure of the right verbiage for that, but it's October, so that they might be in touch with you, Terry, to
Okay.
get on the agenda for then. They also talked about housing accessibility for this disabled, and they were perhaps going to talk with the planning board and see how to raise the visibility of that issue. And the next meeting is in September, and that's and that's all I have. I had a couple meetings that I was not able to attend, but I'll watch the tapes.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to go next?
I guess I'll go because I think the highest visibility meeting last week was the special meeting of the Concord Municipal Light Board to discuss the outage of Concord Broadband, and there was broad representation from the management of the broadband effort as well as the town manager, talking about the series of cascading events and the sort of false starts in terms of expecting that things were fixed but that they weren't. And then just kind of an overall sense that they're going to do a more comprehensive study of what happened and report out later. But I think just moving from just what transpired, there were certainly many questions asked by the public in terms of the future stability of the service, and the management said that the changes that happened actually should result in a more stable internet going forward. However, there were also concerns, I think, about the preparedness of the management for any future kind of disruption, and those that might not be as benign as this, something like an attack, a ransomware attack or any other kind of a cyber attack that could happen, and that it didn't seem that they had in place a real plan, for escalation or response in that effort. And there were also mentions about other models in which there was the physical infrastructure owned in the town, but that the service provision was contracted to a third party, and that maybe that should be considered. So those were the kinds of feedback that came during the session, and it was well attended. Then moving to the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting on July 8th. It was a 4-hour marathon and very eventful in a few different ways. First of all, it was the first special permit approval of a 2-family unit under the new bylaw that was just passed at town meeting this year at 110 Conant Street. So
You're a baby.
Yeah, I wasn't thrilled about every aspect of the design, but the general the general outcome was you had a parcel where normally with single-family zoning, you'd have a 3,500 square foot unit, and instead there are two 1,700 square foot units. So, and so that creates more housing, close to public transit and all those things. So there were a number of other things. Charlie Audie's application for a special permit to create more retail space was approved following our approval earlier. Then there was a long discussion with Symes Development and Permitting LLC for their special permit application for earth removal. And that after a lengthy presentation and public comment, public comment was closed, and it will be continued for deliberation at the next meeting. And then the Concord Country Club, that long-running discussion of the special permit where there was a violation of the removal without authorization of earth. And so that was concluded with the granting of the special permit. There were additional things, so the plantings, there are over 1,000 plantings that will be made. And so there are quite a few, additions to the proposals. So that is now going to move forward.
Wow.
Okay. So
Matt, could I just ask
Yeah.
a question? That had to do with them putting
creating
in
a pond, and with the idea of then supporting more flexible watering, and having less impact on wells and the use of wells. So anyway, they came to a conclusion on that.
Okay. All right.
Going back to Matt's comments on the light board, I mistakenly attended that meeting, thinking that it was under the aegis of the Public Works Department. Terry and I discussed it subsequently and found out that it was yours and not mine.
Okay.
But I, however, was there.
Okay.
And then after I listened to what was said, I took the public statements that had been made both by David Wood and what was put up on the town website, and my own interpretations of what I had heard at the meeting, and sent them along to Mart Howell, who had been the former IT director of the town. And apparently the person who actually was the essentially the founder of the broadband network. And I just quote, and then he sent me a rather lengthy 2-page analysis of his view of the situation. And I would just like to give you a couple of quotations from that. One is that he says, "It appears that the plan devised by the current IT staff was to replace that with the Microsoft DHCP server product. While possible, this would be considered an unusual choice for an internet service provider. I note that I am inferring this from the information below. It needs to be confirmed. Again, experts can disagree on the best approach, but that choice is puzzling to me." He also goes on to say that beyond that, the description of old and new server conflicting over IP addresses schema is quite simply evidence of failed execution of the change from the old system to the new DHCP server systems. This is pretty inexcusable. The communication, this is pretty inexcusable. The communications for the change should have taken place in advance. I showed this to another authority on network structure, my son, who happened to come and have breakfast with me on Sunday morning. He's a high-level network architect working for a large insurance company. He's, by the way, when I say son, I mean he's like, he's 58 years old. You know, that's the kind
He's
of
still a
sons I
kid,
have.
right?
Yeah, he's not like 16. You know, he's not a guy playing video games. And what he says to me is he took one look at this and he said that conflict of IP addresses in a migration of a internet system is a classic example of a botched process. So I think that we're not really getting the whole story here. And I think that maybe when we get to the hearing with the
July 26th.
July
yes.
26th, we will get more information.
Right.
But I have I mean, looking at this, and you try to take everything with a grain of salt.
Right.
You know, there's more to the story than I think we are being told.
Right. I think Mark Howell will be attending, and I mean, I want to hear from everybody. So I'm sure we'll hear his ideas after we hear from CMLP, and we'll have a full discussion of the entire situation.
Good. I don't want to forget about the Ag Committee, though,
Okay.
either.
Okay.
That's one of my, turned out to be one of my great pleasures. We met in Steve Verrill's greenhouse. I think that it's fair to say that that's the only committee that you can meet with where most of the people around the table have dirt under their fingernails. It's a very congenial group. It was a lot of fun. They are all terribly now suffering from the heavy rains. It is killing their crops. They have to replant them, wait for the rain to stop. But they're carrying on. But the interesting thing about them is they are sharing among themselves, you know, useful information about their own activities. I think it's really the only kind of almost professional organization that we sponsor. If you think about it, we don't have a retailers committee or anything of that kind. But they also made some appointments. They appointed somebody to, or they want us to. They're proposing to us the reappointment of one of their members. One of their members will not be continuing, and then an associate member they are recommending be made a full member, and then they have a recommendation for a new associate member. Very important to them, they want us to put Ag Day on the calendar for September 11th. September 11th at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And they would like the cooperation again of the town putting up a banner across Main Street and having either waiving the fees for that or having the town carry those fees as they did last year.
Are they working with the town manager or the appropriate
I
department?
don't know.
Okay.
Okay, but I'm going to
Carrie,
pass this
check on that.
along.
Yeah,
I'll
thank you.
pass this along in case they.
Okay.
Because that's the 20th anniversary of 9/11, so I don't know if it's going
not.
to be.
I said it's a wonderful choice of a date, but then I said the same thing when the Rotary Club sponsor had their annual golf tournament on that date. I said, "Holy cow! What you know, this is like I won't even make the comparisons." But that's-
going back to the vacancies for a minute, you just want to coordinate their vacancies with Jeremy and make sure that,
I checked it. I will do that, but I checked
Wonderful.
it against the town report. I looked at the list. And
I mean, that all the people they want to appoint, that Jeremy has the right green cards and everything, and then we'll get it right on the agenda.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm one step ahead of you. I actually.
You probably are.
No, I'm only 2 steps behind you. But
Okay.
one of the people that they wanted to have appointed, I sent them the link to the online green card. I am giving up.
Okay.
So that's the Ag Committee. I will continue to talk to people about the George Nugent project, and please forgive me, I think I'm going to come and ask you to appoint an ad hoc, short-term committee to review, once again, who should be on that plaque if we're going to replace it.
Right, okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Who is the cemetery commission?
Tish Hopkins,
Linda,
Liaison.
right. So, Linda, you've been working with the cemetery commission already on this?
Well, I've just attended, no, I actually, in preparation for joining them for their first meeting with me as liaison, I looked at their June meeting
Okay,
on video,
yeah,
and that's where I learned that
okay.
they're expecting a committee.
So, are they expecting a subcommittee of the cemetery commission, or a separate committee, or?
No, I think they understood Henry to say that the select board would appoint a 5-member committee.
the line of, line of communication here actually is that the town manager requested that Tish Hopkins get in touch with me about working on this.
Oh. Okay,
And I don't care where the work comes from, I'm happy to take it. It's
Right.
a great project, and it's, I think what really pleases me about that, I think that is DEI in action. Okay? It is doing something real that you can see that represents the town's commitment to inclusion. And it's not just talk.
okay, I just want to make sure that we don't have two different groups working on the same project, that everybody's coordinated together on this.
Sure, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
All right, Linda?
Sure. I attended the Historic Districts Commission, and they had, for their business, a unusually short meeting and sort of routine applications that they were looking at. They do have one vacancy at this point. I attended the Concord Historical Commission, and that was very interesting. The current tenant of the Wheeler Harrington House, without prior approval, did some renovations to the shed.
Oh.
And now, one of the outbuilding sheds, and now was requesting the committee if he could take the shed with him.
No?
And so you can imagine that was an interesting discussion. They were pleased with the annual town meeting passing the demolition review bylaw amendment, and we're now just exploring what had to happen next. And they were reminded that all the articles from town meeting need to now be approved by the Attorney General's office.
Of course.
Before well, not everyone knows that, before they
Take effect.
take effect. The other interesting discussion was the anticipated pavement improvements to Route 2A, which we're all hoping will get done before 2025. And MassDOT is now at the 75% design stage, and Lincoln has done quite a bit of, has been following that project for over a year, and has submitted all kinds of detail in terms of what they would like to see happen there. HATS, which I'll talk about in a second, requested that all the member towns of HATS submit a letter of support for all Lincoln's suggestions. Lexington's already done that. I sent that request on to the town manager to deal with as he saw fit.
Excuse me, Linda, are you talking about the Battle Road 2A?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on that last,
Closer to, most of the improvements would be closer to the national
Yeah, and
park. But there is a section that's in Concord.
Right, but I have to say, when I reviewed that, my first reaction was, while it's great to have those improvements to 2A on the Lexington side of town, it's sad that there's not any improvements being made on the Acton side of 2A, where we have over 100 citizens that have petitioned for safety improvements. And I mean, this is a very extensive project, and it's a very short stretch of 2A between Concord and Acton. And, there are miles of improvements being done here and nothing
That's a
there.
really good
So
point.
I just wanted to raise that.
Yeah, and it's a valid and a good point. This particular plan was reviewed by the Historical Commission, was sent to the Historical Commission and reviewed, and their concern is that none of the, there are no comments in the 75% design that attend to the historic nature and historic signage and markings of that area. So they were going to submit a letter to that effect.
Linda, getting back to the letter that you said you sent to the town manager to follow up on,
Right.
is that something that they're looking for the select board to, or the town manager, or you don't know either way?
I really think it was first to go to the town manager and see how he saw fit.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, fine.
to approve it.
Okay.
I will comment, however, though, as I mentioned, Lexington did submit a letter of support. And I just want to comment on their professionalism in terms of how they did this. They, on their letterhead, very nicely done in terms of the letter of support. And then they immediately, on that same letter, CC'd their response to all of the other member towns in hats that had been requested to do the same, so that we can see what the loop is.
Yep.
And it, it's just nicely done. And I've had Bedford recently did that on some other item related to hats, where they then CC'd all the representatives from hats.
And are these letters coming from their town managers or their select
Town
boards?
manager's office.
Okay, great.
On letterhead.
I'm not gonna put it on my list. Perfect. Oh, great.
Professionally done.
Okay.
The next item I attended was the Hanscom Area Towns Committee, and often there are items there that may or may not be as much import to us as others. But this particular time, Colonel Katrina Stevens, who's the commander at Hanscom Air Force Base and has been in that position for a year, was the guest speaker, and as you can imagine, was a very enthusiastic and well-spoken spokesman for all the activities at Hanscom. She meets on a fairly regular basis with all the town managers, and so there's some synergy there that's happening. They have a DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion activity, a series of activities that they're doing, and she was very proud of the efforts that they're making there, including using demographic data to inform decisions across their operations that she spoke about. And there were a number of other activities and events, and they're working with an outside consultant. And her closing remark on this particular category was, you either accelerate change in this category or you lose. And that's where she was coming from. Their mission is expanding. As we know, they are IT support for actual military battle in a different 21st century way, I guess. Because of the nature of the work that they do there, they're particularly concerned about increasing security on the base. And so there will be major construction activity around the gate and the entranceway on 2A. So that's another thing that's going to be going on in that section of the road. As Matt mentioned, the 20th anniversary of 9/11 events is this year, and they are targeting September 10th for the base celebration.
Because they're going to probably be on alert on the 11th.
Yeah, and we'll probably be invited to some special activities related to that. We asked her if the economic impact on the state is the same as the prior year given COVID, and she said yes, it is. And I think I've hit the high points there. Lexington has already filled a DEI position, and that position is starting in July. They're doing working with ACES. The board is, the select board is. And they're also doing some things with the community.
What did you say, ACES?
Yeah, it's a consulting group.
Okay.
Yeah, on DEI. And we talked about in our various towns about who was moving to hybrid meetings, how many were, how often, how soon they were. And interestingly enough, in Lexington, they still have 2 select board members who are not comfortable meeting in public, and 2 are. So they still had some more work there to decide how they were going to handle that. And I think I've given you. Bedford said at their town meeting, Bedford at the town meeting, the largest discussion at their town meeting was repurposing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples' Day. Evoked the most discussion. And they're starting a workforce management survey of all their employees. Again, we've heard about, that's one of the things that our personnel committee should be working on in terms of workforce forecasting and, identifying needs of the workforce going forward, et cetera. But they've already started that effort. So I think I too attended most of the Concord Municipal Light Plant discussion to follow up on what had happened in terms of the outage. And I would only add to Matt's comments and Henry's comments that the seriousness of the conversation in terms of trying to understand what had just happened and the questions that were directed to the various people there was surely noted, and I think everybody's waiting for the after report that's going to be available to all of us.
Right.
So that concludes my remarks.
Okay, thank you. So just very quickly, I'm the school committee liaison. As you probably know, there was a fire at the Rose School in the 1994 wing. The cause was an electric heater in the attic, and there are now 8 classrooms unusable due to water damage, but the rest of the school is fine. A contractor is already working to clean, demolish, and rebuild. So that wing most of it will not be ready for the fall, and they're looking at alternatives. Dr. Hunter was very congratulatory to the fire and police departments for their rapid and professional response. And so the cleanup is going very well so far. And also I also attended the light board debriefing. I'm looking forward to the second one that we'll have in a few weeks. And I met with Personnel Chair Bill Moracek, and we had 2 meetings actually, one by phone and one in person. They were excellent, and we agreed we want to have a lot more dialogue this year between the Select Board and the Personnel Board. Great. So Susan will be, as liaison, following up with some of that. Okay, we now are turning to public comment. I just want to say, if you're attending tonight by Zoom and you have public comment, you can raise your hand by selecting the participants box, then hover your mouse over your name and wait for the prompt, raise your hand. Then I'll call on you and you wait to be rejoined to the meeting. And please state your name and address for the record. So, do we have any public comments, live or by Zoom? Okay, seeing none.
We do have Pamela just raised her hand. So,
alrighty.
Pamela, if you would like to unmute yourself, go ahead.
Hi. I just want to find out if it's possible for the Zoning Board of Appeals to approve the earth removal special permit if the application does not fulfill all of the regulations that are required.
I think that's a question for the zoning board of appeals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I encourage you to realize that somebody has to take the long view of the environmental harm that that project would do, and that other projects such as that would do. That comes, it seems to me, even though we don't specifically say climate change issues, we do know now the actual harm, not just physical harm, but cost, monetary cost to the town of the climate change issues. So I urge all of you to keep that in mind when you're considering the cost of, say, litigation.
Okay, thank you, Pamela. Would you please state your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry, Pamela Dritt, 13 Concord Green, Unit 4.
All right, thank you for your comments.
We have to assume that the Board of Appeals will in fact apply all of the necessary standards that are that relate to the granting of that permit as well as any other permit. And if you want to make sure that they are diligent about that, the thing to do is to go to their hearings on the matter and to make these same points to the Board of Appeals.
Right, okay.
which I believe Ms. Dritt has done.
Right.
Excellent.
But, okay,
And she can keep on doing it.
Yeah.
right. All right, if there's nothing further, we'll have a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did we ever
Hey,
get a
have a
no
great
vote?
night. Thank you.